everyone, welcome to Cancer Healing Journey Talks. Myself Sonali Modi from Community Outreach Team of ZenOnco.io and Love Heals Cancer. We guide cancer patients on adopting an integrative oncology treatment approach. We help them find the balance between medical treatment and complementary treatment approaches. We help patients with our team of oncologists, lab experts, nutritionists, and other healthcare professionals so that we can improve the treatment outcome for patients. We also help in connecting patients with other cancer warriors who have gone through this journey currently. And we also share inspirational journeys to motivate cancer warriors who are going through this journey currently. So, firstly, I would like to introduce you to today's speaker, Miss Ashley Brooks. She's a cancer warrior. I'm happy that you're here with us today to share your story. So, Ashley, please start with your introduction.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Ashley Brooks. I am a full-time nursing student at Barry University. That's actually my second degree. I was diagnosed with a rare form of liver cancer at the age of 2. I had my last surgery around when I was 4 or 5. And then I was in remission for about 5 years after that. And then I've also, after the remission, I've also was diagnosed with depression later on in high school. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what made you go for the diagnosis? And what were the initial symptoms?
My initial symptoms, so I was 2 when I was diagnosed. I was a toddler. And from what my parents have told me is that they took me to the doctor and I had, at first it was just jaundice. So I had yellowing eyes and my skin, and they took me to the doctor and the diagnosis was like a liver infection. So they gave me like some antibiotics or whatever, and they took me home. And then my mom went back to the same doctor 2 weeks later, and they did a biopsy, and they told her that I had days to live, and it had already progressed to early stage 3 liver cancer. So the initial symptoms that I had, she said I was just very, very fatigued. Like when they had to take me to the doctor, she had to carry me in her arms because I couldn't walk on my own. I couldn't really do anything. I had jaundice in my eyes and my skin. My eyes were completely yellow. My skin had like a yellow tone to it. I had a lump on my abdomen and I had a really bad stomach pain.
Okay. So can you share like how this news was disclosed to you and your family? Like how your family reacted when they got to know that at such a small kid is facing liver cancer. So how your parents took this news when the doctor told them this?
Yeah, so my mom was the one who took me to the doctor, and I guess initially when she found out, she fainted. I think it was a little too drastic for her because, you know, it was just like 2 weeks ago that I was like a liver infection. I wasn't expecting it to progress to early stage 3 liver cancer. And then I guess when she fainted, they had to call my dad. So my dad had to come and they told him the news. And I guess he was very emotional as well.
Yeah. So as a childhood cancer survivor, like what treatment were being set for you? What treatment you underwent?
So I underwent surgical removal of my gallbladder. So what happened was, even though it was liver cancer, the cells that engulfed the gallbladder was completely liver, so it was spreading. I did 18 months of chemotherapy, which was cisplatin chemotherapy with a mix of antibiotics. I was told it was about 10 minutes a day. So I was diagnosed in late February. So probably around like, I guess, May of the following year, that's when I finished my chemo. I also had a port put in on the right side of my chest right here. That was to like when I went to school, if I needed to receive like chemo or any type of antibiotics or drugs. It's called a central line in nursing. It goes straight to your superior vena cava, and that's where you get all your medication for your chemo. So I had that put in afterwards, and I think that was taken out when I was in kindergarten. Like when I was like 4 or 5, that was taken out.
Yeah. So chemotherapy is a very tough routine. So can you share your experience, like as a child, like how you coped with all the difficulties you must have faced during those times?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really I mean, the early parts of it was kind of a blur because I was so young. I was only 2 years old. So I was kind of like used to like the pain and stuff. But I do vividly remember my port being taken out and all of that. That was like when I was like 4 or 5, and that wasn't the best experience. I just remember like my mom, the doctor told my oncologist told my mom like, okay, she cannot play out in the sun, and being like being 4 or 5 years old, you don't know that. So I used to like try to like play in the sun, and then I would faint or I would fall out, or there'd be times where it would get infected over and over again because it was very difficult to keep clean, especially being a kid, like running around and everything, having that on outside of your body. It was kind of a traumatic experience, especially because it wasn't flat. Like it was something that like pokes out. So even if I wore like dresses or shirts or anything, like other kids would probably notice it as well. And then so too, like also like I did remember receiving some type of counseling when I was younger too, because the chemo it kind of destroyed my hearing. It destroyed like your hearing and your hair and everything. So at the time, my parents couldn't afford hearing aids. So the school district I was going to, I had to perform specific assessments in order to get this device, which was called an FM system. And in the FM system, it's like a little speaker box that sits on my desk, and then there's a microphone that the teacher wears, kind of like Britney Spears, like in the early 90s, had a little microphone. And then that was something that would amplify the teacher's voice instead of me actually wearing a hearing aid. So I had to go and do those over and over again, because obviously I had to prove that I had a hearing loss in order for me to use it. I also had to go through, I had a couple incidences like after my remission with like depression. And so I had to go to counseling services when I was like probably like around 10, 11, 12 years old. Part of it was the assessment, because the person who did my assessment was my guidance counselor. So it started to do like the assessment, and then afterwards it started to be like, how was your experience, being a cancer survivor? How was your experience connecting with other kids who have cancer? And then like, do you ever feel like you want to commit suicide? Do you feel like you have a reason to live? And I went through those sessions a lot, especially in elementary school and middle school and high school.
Yeah. So like from where did you get your support system along with the family?
Okay, so I had a little boy. His name was Scotty. He's no longer here, but he was diagnosed with leukemia when I was 2 years old. And we were actually one of the first recipients of an organization called Friends of Kids with Cancer in St. Louis. Our life specialist at the hospital actually started this organization, and we had parties, we had Easter parties, fashion shows, all of that. And so it was really good for me to be around other kids who were struggling with everything. So I used to attend those parties and do those things. And then at the age of 14, he actually relapsed, and the leukemia came back with the brain tumor, and he passed away. So after he died, that's when the depression hit, because I didn't have my support system. I didn't have any other survivors. I kind of stopped going to talk to my oncologist and my doctors, because I kind of felt angry that he had left, and that he had lost. He had fought twice and he had lost, and I had won. So that's when the depression came. Now I have like a support system with American Childhood Organization. They actually do a lot of things with a lot of other childhood cancer survivors, and I actually have a lot of friends that are like breast cancer survivors, like on Instagram, like, and I like it too. I mean, I don't know them, but it's nice to see other survivors, because I haven't had that support system in a long time. It wasn't something that I accepted. So I have that support system, and I also volunteer with American Cancer Society. So I'm part of, they have an Action Can organization which focuses on like the legal aspect of cancer, like passing certain bills and laws and things like that. And I've met a lot of other survivors through them as well.
Yeah. So like, how did you manage your emotional well-being during those times? Like when your friend left, he was also your support system and you were a teenager at that time. So then you underwent, then you went through depression. So how did you manage? How have you come out victorious?
Like, so like what happened was like so like the little FM system that I had, I actually I went, so when he died, I didn't really grieve properly. In nursing, we call it manipulated grieving. It's like when you don't fully process the fact that someone's gone. So he died, and then 2 years later, I was hospitalized for severe depression and bipolar with symptoms of schizophrenia. And it was a lot of things that I did not, because I didn't have closure from his death. I didn't get to see like a funeral. I didn't get to see his family. Like it was just like, I went to an annual Christmas party and I was expecting to see him there and he was not there. And I had actually brought friends from my school to like meet him. And so when he wasn't there, and like my friend got like a karaoke machine, they had karaoke there, and she sung for me Michael Jackson's Heal the World, and she dedicated the song to him. But I actually, my first 2 years of high school, I did not use my FM system at all either. I just sat in the front of the classroom because I felt like it was a way for other people to bully me, because to them, like, kids were just like, oh, why does she have a secret box? Why does she have this? Why does she have that? They don't understand that, you know, you're a cancer survivor and all this kind of stuff. So to me, it was something that was like, oh, if I hide this, then maybe it will go away. So then by junior year, I got sick of hiding it and I got the courage to actually get it back. And that's when, like, having that back with the cancer survivor guilt and then the bullying I experienced in high school is what kind of downplayed the whole spiraling effect of the depression and the bipolar, because it was like nonstop. I would go to lunch and I would see them like throwing it across the class, like throwing it across the cafeteria. And people don't understand, like, you know, that's something that I need because I have a hearing loss. They think like, oh, well, she gets it because she's, you know, she's special or something, but that's not the idea. So like what I did to actually manage it when I was in the hospital, they teach you different coping mechanisms to deal with grief and pain and whatnot. So they teach you how to meditate. They teach you how to journal. They teach you like positive affirmations and like positive thinking and like how to take like your pain in your life and kind of deal and how to adapt into society so that you can function and still be able to have friends and be able to manage your medication and your symptoms and things across that line. So when I was in the hospital, I kind of wrote him a letter of things that I wish I would have told him and how I felt. And that was my way of kind of like letting him go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do actually people need to expect when they get this cancer type?
What should they expect?
Yeah.
Like just liver cancer, or just any type of pediatric cancer?
Any type of cancer. What do people actually need to expect and what things they should be aware of?
I think they need to have good coping skills. I think a lot, because your body, anytime you alter your body, whether it's a scar, if you're getting a tumor removed, a breast removed, like, I learned the hard way that my family is not the best support system. You need to be around other survivors. You need to be around other people who are going through the same thing that you're going through, because the family is different. My mom is mourning a child that is going through a difficult time. The same thing with my father. But to be around other survivors who've gone through the same thing that you have, I can talk to them and be like, oh, look at my port scar, or look at my abdomen scar. You know, like writing, there's a girl that I met that's on Instagram who she's battling stage 4 cancer right now, and she writes about her experiences in her blog all the time. Like, I think that's so beautiful because I never did that. Like, I was 2. I wasn't thinking about doing a blog when I was that age, but I also think that it's really important for them to connect with other survivors. That to me is the most important thing, because to me, that was when I closed off my diagnosis and I wasn't talking to survivors. I didn't have my support system. That's where I had my depression. Another thing that they need to be expecting of is the financial burden that comes with it. It doesn't matter what job, you can be the richest person in the world. Insurance is still not going to cover everything. In America, anyway, like our health system is good, but it's not going to cover everything. It's not going to cover all the surgeries, all the visits, things across that line. So it is something that's a financial hardship, both on the family and the patient. I think people should also expect like how to cope with things afterwards, because you're not going to go back to the way things are before, especially with the side effects of chemo. So some of the things that I've experienced with chemo has been like my hearing loss. I have a little bit of a speech impediment because of my hearing loss, because I have a little bit of a lisp, but most of the time you can't hear it. I also have, they talk about it now, it's called chemo brain, or post-cognitive chemo disorder, which basically means like anytime you undergo chemo for a long period of time, the effects of it never leave your body. So like instead of feeling tired around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I feel tired around 6. So I do things to help manage that, because I don't like to feel tired all the time. So I have a friend who, her father had cancer, and if they take it's an herb, I think it's called ashwagandha, but it helps reduce the inflammation in the brain so that you're not as tired, you're not as foggy, you can think clearly. It helps with depression, it helps with energy. I also do acupuncture too, to help with like the pain and like stress management after disease. The after effects of radiation and chemo too. So you lose your sensory skills as well. So like sometimes, like when I used to play tennis in high school, like I would get sunburned and I would be out in the sun for so long, but I didn't realize I was getting burned because my sensory on my skin is sensitive. I have really sensitive skin. There's something that they need to be aware of too. I'm trying to think of some other chemo things that I went through. The losing of the hair. Obviously, you lose your hair. Something that some people go through based on their diagnosis. But I feel like now they have different wigs and different organizations now that kind of help with like altered body images and things across that line. Also, I feel like always making sure your immune system is boosted. So making sure that you have like, I always take my vitamins and stuff, because I feel like I get sick easily, even though I'm not immunocompromised. I still like to be like extra healthy. So I take my herbs and stuff that help with things across that line. And I think another thing that should be expected too is you should always stay up to date with research. Find a good organization that, like, I get a lot of my research results from my previous oncologist and nurse, and they let me know like, oh, this is a research that has been done in the last 5-10 years about cancer patients and this and that. And that way you're not out of the loop of things and changes that are going on as well.
Yeah. So what were the things that helped you and made you happy on this journey?
What has made me happy? A lot. I think for me, like, I love, when you go through things like this, you have a different perspective of life, especially with being in nursing. I feel like I'm a better nurse or I will be a better nurse because I've been through things in life. Like, I know where that patient has been. I know why they're sitting in a hospital bed. I've been there. I feel like I've been hospitalized more than I have been as a nurse. So I think it helps with my compassion, because they always say like the best nurses and doctors are the ones that actually have gone through things in life, because they're not bitter and they're not hard. So that definitely brings me happiness. I think connecting with other people has made me happy, even ones that are not cancer survivors, but they hear my story and they get inspired. They go back to school, they buy a puppy. They do things that because they have an understanding that life is it's fleeting. It's very, very, very short. So you have to enjoy it while you're alive.
So did you make any lifestyle changes after the treatment?
Yeah, so after the treatment, I did. The first thing that my doctor told my mom was like, you need to make sure she gets her ears checked because the chemotherapy causes ototoxicity, so you have to get your ears checked. He also told her like make sure when I go outside and I play, like I need to play in the shade, or I need to wear a lot of sunscreen. Another thing that happened too was because I was getting chemo in the hospital, I missed out on school. So even though I was diagnosed at 2, like usually you enroll kids in like preschool around like 3 or 4. So my mom had to teach me how to read. So back in the day, they had a company called Hooked on Phonics where I could read. She would come home every day after my treatments and she would work at home and she would just go over like basic vocabulary words with me. And she was always told to like read to me. And the doctor also told her that it's very important for me to stay active. So he was like, anything that helps with the brain, like exercising, going for a walk, art classes, pottery. She's like, it's not good for me to just like lay down. She's like, even when she feels tired, like she can take like naps and stuff, but always try to keep her as like active as possible.
There are times when you feel that it's too much to handle, but you still don't give up. So what was the one thing that kept you motivated and kept you going on such days?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. What caused me not to give up? Maybe my past. Like, yeah, I never want to go back to where I was before. I always want to try to do better than where I was, ambitiously. I think another thing that has helped me has been my faith in God. Like I probably in the last like 10 years, like I recommitted my faith to God and I got baptized and I found a really good church and I have really good support system within my church. Like the women that I hang out with, they are all Christian women. Some of them have gone through similar things as me, not in that sense of like cancer, but maybe in the sense of like the depression and like the anxiety and things across that, like the mental health aspect. I love the fact that I can connect with them and they can be inspired by my story.
Yeah. So every crisis in life teaches you a particular lesson. So what life lessons have you got from your cancer journey?
Life changes I've got since my cancer journey.
Life lessons.
Life lessons. Optimism is so important. I think it's so important to stay positive. It's so easy to complain and to dwell on the past and where things could have been and would have been and things across that line. But I think the best journey for me has always just making sure I stay positive.
Yes, because staying positive will also help you to heal faster. Because having a positive mindset, being around positive people, cutting out toxic people and cutting out negativity from the surroundings, that ultimately helps you to recover faster. So what all things helped you in your faster recovery?
What are things that has helped me? Well, like what you said, positive thinking. I also love meditation. I feel like, I don't know what it is, but like just sitting still and just breathing has just, I think it's just a reminder that like you're not in control of everything in life. And that there's forces that are greater than you, but you just have to learn how to be still. and be in the moment and to be present. So I definitely love meditation. I definitely love prayer. I have a prayer journal so that when my prayers are answered, I can go back. I use them as testimonies. So I love that aspect of meditation and prayer.
Yeah. So how has your life been after cancer?
My cancer survivorship journey has been interesting. I talked to you about the depression. Afterwards, the bullying in school has a lot to do with my cancer diagnosis. And I think the bullying has a lot to do with the depression too, like when they were throwing like my box around and things across that line. Besides that, I mean, when I did move to Chicago, I had a little bit of anxiety that like I thought I was gonna come back. So I went to like several different doctors for a blood test to see like where, like what was my white blood cell count, like was it coming back and things across that line. And I think I at the time was like a vegetarian, and the doctor was like, he kind of gave me some education. He was like, I don't think it's coming back, but you need to start eating meat again because, you know, you're like anemic now because you haven't had any protein because you've been on a plant-based diet. So you need to eat meat, and you need to, like, he's like, eggs. If you like start slow, you like start with eggs and chicken and turkey, and then work your way back to like red meat. I think that has been important too. I think like my patient education has been important because when I went through the depression and when my friend died, I stopped talking to my doctors because I was so angry. Like I was just pissed off at the world. And I'm like, I don't want to learn about my diet, what I need to be doing afterwards. Like I should survive and that should be enough. Like, you know, that's where my mindset was. But I think it's really important to connect with your doctor so that they can give you the best advice that you need after you survive, you know, whether you suffer from like the anemia or like sensitive skin or like chemo brain, there's so much research that has been done since I survived that I just wasn't aware about until I met up with a couple of my doctors.
Yeah. So do you think that cancer has changed you in a positive way?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do. Like, I can't say that was the issue 10 years ago because I was not in that mindset, but I believe it's changed in a positive way. Yes.
So gratitude seems to be the biggest strength to fight the situation. So what were you ever so grateful for that made you always calm down after thinking or revisiting that memory?
What was the question again? One more time.
Gratitude seems to be the biggest strength because we are always grateful for something or the other thing to fight such kind of situations. So what is the one thing that you are grateful for?
The one thing I am grateful for, having life, being able to have breath in my lungs and experience life now, like on my own. Yeah, I would say that I think gratitude is a very powerful emotion. I think if you take time out of your day and you write down all the things that you're grateful for, you'll end up crying because there's so many people that don't have what you have. But yeah, I would say just being able to live and not be in the hospital all the time.
Yeah. So what was your parents' reaction or your family's reaction after your reports were finally showing that you're cancer free?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember because my mom was like, all I remember was like going, like, you know, like after you finish remission, like you have to keep going back to the doctor to get checkups. And my nurses has that organization, and there's like a toy closet. And I remember being like 10, 11, 12, being in remission, and she was like, okay, you're cancer free, go to the toy closet and get a toy. And I'm like, what? Like the toy, like you're still trying to put me in the toy closet again? So she was like, go in there and pick something out. And so I went in there, and I'm like 12, like 13. So you're like a teenager. So you're at that stage where you're like, you're trying to be grown, but you still want to be a kid. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go in there and pick a Barbie out. And just like, and play with it. And my mom would just like, I think she was just kind of like laughing, like, you know, like, yeah, like there's not, I mean, now people ring bells and they have all that kind of stuff, but she was just like, okay, yeah, go pick another toy out the closet. And, but yeah, they were happy.
Yeah. So do you still go for prescribed checkups after being cancer free since such a long time?
No. So I talked to my doctor. When was the last time I talked to my doctor? So when I went home in St. Louis, my oncologist in St. Louis, in 2018, I stopped by because he has a whole new practice. It's beautiful. Like before, it used to be like 800 square feet, and now it's like a whole floor. Like, oh my God, he's grown so much. But he said that I'm considered cured and I don't have to keep going back. I just kind of went there for kind of like an emotional support thing, just to see how he was doing and things across that line. And then the same thing with my life specialist. She told me that, you know, I need to go see like a therapist for mental health, and I did, but I don't have to go back there routinely now. Yeah.
So do you have the fear of reoccurrence? And if yes, then how you deal with it?
No, I used to. When I was like in my 20s, when I didn't have a support system, I did have a fear of reoccurrence because I felt like I was so busy influenced by like the blogs, like, oh, you gotta eat a vegetarian diet for cancer not to come back, or I was listening to people who were not resourceful. You know, like they weren't your doctors, they were like bloggers and like things across that line. So I was like, oh, like I kind of got anxiety. Like I was like, oh my God, it's gonna come back. I gotta do this and I gotta do this and I gotta do that. And it becomes like a list. And then you become like paranoid. And then it was like, that's why I say it's like it's so important for you to listen to your doctor, because they're the ones that have your best interest in heart. These people I hear who have like blogs and stuff, it's nice, it's good for expression, but they haven't spent the 8 years in med school that most people have spent to get a job. But I did have it in my 20s, but now that I'm older, I don't have it.
So what do you think are the stigmas attached to cancer and the importance of awareness for it?
I think I really do think that it's something that's really important. Especially for my type of cancer, like childhood cancer, the number one killer of all kids. And a lot of people like, well, I feel like in America, there's a lot of stuff for breast cancer because of women, and that's because it occurs more, but like no one's talking about those rare cancers. No one's talking about the liver cancers and the pediatric cancers and stuff because they're rare. But that's why I think it's so important to have awareness, because it can bring people together instead of like becoming something that's divisive.
Yeah. So an act of kindness that you will never forget.
An act of kindness that I will never forget. Probably the friend that I took to the Christmas party to let her know that my friend had passed from leukemia, and she dedicated that song to him, and she sung Michael Jackson, Heal the World.
Yeah. So what is that one thing on your bucket list you would want to do?
Hold on 1 second. Stop. I have a puppy and he's chewing at the wall right now. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
One thing on your bucket list you would want to do.
One thing on my bucket list that I would want to do. I jumped off a waterfall. I really want to go to Dubai. To ride, like not even Dubai, like the safari desert, and they have those like ATV 4-wheelers. I really want to do that. I want to ride in the desert with like And I want to have the traditional, like, the scars on too, so my skin doesn't get burned, and ride one of the four-wheelers.
Yeah. So what do you think means that you have learned over the years that would lead you to a better future?
What do you think I would have known over the years to lead to a better future?
Yeah.
I wish that I never turned away from my cancer family, because I feel like if I would have got the help I needed, I would have never been hospitalized for depression, because I would have had that support group the whole time.
Yeah.
That's probably something, because when I was a kid, like they never talked about the aftermath of cancer. Everyone talked about the chemo and the treatment. No one said anything about anxiety, depression. I wish they would have told me that information when I was in remission. But I mean, the research probably wasn't there, but I wish that was available, because I feel like sometimes dealing with the aftermath of cancer is harder than dealing with the cancer itself.
Yeah. So what message you would want to give to other cancer patients and caregivers?
Just stay positive.
Yeah.
I tell them to stay positive.
Because staying positive will only help them. And
exactly.
Many people nowadays don't communicate much because they think that I can manage this thing on my own. I don't need anyone's help, especially with cancer patients. They don't want, means many a times after they are dealing with cancer, they feel that I don't want to be a burden. So, like they just, yeah. So, like many patients, they feel that they don't want to be a burden on someone else, because they don't want to communicate much. So what you would want to share on such perspective, that should they communicate more and they should reach out to more people for help? So what do you think are the importance of support groups?
I think it's important because it helps with the coping mechanisms of it, and they provide additional resources for you to cope. So like one thing that like another girl does was like she writes and she does yoga and she meditates, and you can do that stuff together with other cancer survivors. So I think it's really, really important, because they're going to provide you with the resources that you need for your mental health, in order for you to not make it feel like as if it's like a burden so much. I also think it's really important to share and to reach out so that you can get the resources and stuff that you need. I know there's a Bible verse about this, because when in Chicago, when I was having a hard time coping with my diagnosis, I wasn't talking about it. There's a verse, and it's kind of like, the reason why God wants you to share your stories with other people so that you can connect, not so that you're a burden on other people. And I think that's really, really powerful, because a lot of times people say like, oh, you shouldn't tell your business, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But I think it's a way that you bond with people when you talk about your experiences, that you guys can go through things together and not have to do everything all by yourself.
Yes. So ZenOnco.io work towards the betterment of cancer patients, like through integrated oncology approach. So what are your thoughts on the same?
Okay, one more time. What was the question?
So actually ZenOnco.io and Love Heals Cancer, we help patients through our integrated oncology approach. That means we help them with their medical treatment as well as with their complementary treatment therapies as well. So what do you think about the work we are doing in terms of patient care?
I think it's good. Like I did a lot of research on you guys before the interview. I love that you guys offer different options and it's not just one thing. I think it's really good that you have not only just the medications options, but you also have like the natural options as well, because that way whoever is going through treatment, they can make whatever decision that they feel is necessary for them.
Yes, definitely. So if you have to sum up your journey in one sentence, then what would that be?
If I could sum up my journey in one sentence, what would it be? Only God.
Yeah.
Only God.
So, your story is very inspiring. So, being a childhood cancer survivor, you have come a long way. And it really inspire people, because being a child of 2 years, you got cancer and you fought through it with so much courage. And I hope this session really inspire people like who are going through this journey currently. So thank you so much for your valuable time, Ashley. And I hope this
You're
session
welcome.
really motivates people out there who are still going through this journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.